What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today I'll be reviewing a beer from the Seventh Son Brewing Company, and they're out of Columbus, Ohio, and this is their Pineapple Express. So this is a pineapple sour ale with terps, aka terpenes. It comes in at 6% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed. Time of review. This can is just under 4 months old. I want to give a huge thanks and shout out once again to a very good friend of mine and viewer of the channel, Curtis, for this beer. So huge thanks to him. In the description box, I'll post a link to the beer mail unboxing video I did that contains all the goodies he sent my way, and he sent me an Ohio-centric beer mail that contained 7 unique beers, and this is one of those beers, and I'm excited about this one for a couple reasons. Number one, this is the first beer that I'm ever having from Seventh Son, and I've heard pretty good things, and it's another beer that is brewed with cannabis terpenes. I've reviewed one other on the channel, was a hazy IPA, and it was a lot of fun. I've had a couple off camera on tap, and they were also quite fun and enjoyable. They're not for everybody. If you don't like cannabis, marijuana, weed, then these definitely are not for you. But if you partake in both of them, then I mean both of them, I mean, you know, weed and beer, these can be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. Like I said, this is technically a sour ale that is brewed with pineapple puree and cannabis terpenes specifically. And I do have a little bit of a backstory on this one, and that is that Curtis, I think he bought an entire 6-pack or at least a couple cans of it, and he shared one with his brother. And I'll pour it as I talk. And he shared it with his brother, and oh my God. All right, it just stopped me in my tracks, the nose. So this pertains to the aromatics. So he shared one with his brother, and his other brother and sister-in-law had went out to the store, and when they came back and they were drinking this beer, they walked in and they said, did somebody, spark up a joint? Is somebody smoking weed in here? And no, it was just this beer. So that's how pungent these beers can be, that a scenario like that plays out in real time. And he thought it was hilarious. And I also think it's hilarious. And there is some Dirty Glass Mafia. So that had just died out. But yeah, pineapple sour, that is kind of, if you tell me with a pineapple sour that's not like a heavily fruited, over-the-top fruit puree sour, I'd say it looks like that. It has a beautiful, pineapple kind of look to it. It has that like yellow-orange kind of color. The clarity's not great. You'll probably see, yeah, you can see maybe the shadow ever so slightly of my hand, but not for the most part. It's pretty murky in there. Again, it had about a finger of an off-white head that is now dissipated to a thin film, probably between the pineapple puree and the terpenes. You have nothing going on for it in terms of the head, but you can see it's a little bit lighter. Hold it up to the side. There is some decent carbonation. I don't know how it's going to come off on camera. Decent carbonation to it. But yeah, that looks the role of something that you're telling me is a pineapple sour with terpenes. Sure. Let's get a nose. And like I said, when I cracked it, I could see why Curtis's brother and sister-in-law thought somebody fired up a joint, because that's exactly what it smelled like when I cracked it. Interesting, though. Let me go into the can here. Yeah, the can is super dank, super fruity, and very marijuana-esque. The nose, it smells more like a pineapple goza to me. There's like this slight salinity, but then big, bright, fresh, juicy pineapple in the nose. It does have a little bit of like this kind of sensation in the nose that it's going to have a nice tartness to it. A little bit of sweetness, but I'm getting a salinity. I'm definitely getting like a minerality. And then that dank character is kind of covering, blanketing the whole aroma. And the thing about it, though, is when I cracked it, it instantly just smelled like cannabis, 100%. As it opens up here, though, that is dissipating. And you could look at that as a good thing or a bad thing, because if it was as intense as the nose was indicating, as I cracked it, it might be a bit too much for me. Maybe a little bit of like a soft citrus in here, like an orange. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to bullshit here and try to pull out 55 different flavors or aromatics I'm not getting. Pineapple, sweet, juicy, a little acidic. There is a nice kind of feeling of this is going to be sour, at the very least tart, a little bit of that minerality, kind of like salinity in the nose, and then a dankness from the terpenes. Not much more to say about it. Let's get into it. Cheers, everybody. Thanks again, Curtis. That's nice. If I was doing this blind, I'm either calling this a goza or Berliner Weiss, and I'd be leaning towards Goza. There is this minerality, this salinity that just reminds me of a Goza. It's almost like you drink margaritas, or you ever had like a lime lager that maybe it has, like sometimes you go to a bar, they'll put like the salt around like a lime lager. It kind of has that, maybe to not that degree, not the salinity to that degree, but there's definitely a salinity in here. Buying this is not like super thin, 6%. It's about medium, maybe a touch over. It's nice. The mouthfeel is an old school sour mouthfeel. It's crisp. It's effervescent on the palate. Like it has this spritzy sensation from front to back. It's like a touch over moderately carbonated, but it's not too over the top. Like sometimes when I get a huge carbonation bomb of a beer like that's akin to a seltzer, it'll wipe away the palate. It'll just like strip all of the flavors off my palate because of the carbonation is that harsh. This is not approaching that, but it definitely is more of a crisp kind of feeling to it. A little bit of a smooth nature on the back of the palate. To be honest with you, the taste is not as, I wasn't expecting a huge complexity, especially after the nose, but I was expecting maybe a little bit more of the terpenes and just a little bit more, I guess, complexity in general. But this is really nice, super drinkable, 6% you can't tell. So right forefront to me is a generic sour beer. So I'm getting this like grainy kind of malt character, maybe a little bit of like a crackery, bready kind of malt character. I sometimes say doughy. Usually that's for like heavily fruity sours, but it's just like a decent malt character, dives underneath the palate. But along with that graininess is an omnipresent, like I said, salinity, minerality. I don't know if it's the water treatment with this one, or it actually has a little bit of salinity in here, maybe coming from the pineapple, maybe from the terps mixing with the pineapple. But there's this like salinity that I can't really get past in terms of like, it's there. I noticed it, I have to mention it. But front to back, it has a beautiful pineapple character that's not too sweet. It has a juicy, sweeter pineapple, but it's not over the top, has a nice tartness to it. And then underlying like citrus tones, like an orange kind of pith and rind, a little bit of like a ruby red grapefruit, maybe even a little bit of a lemon lime in there as well. And as it finishes, the dankness hits. And it is like more of a generic dankness with a little bit, like a skosh of like a cannabis. Like I can kind of get it. Because it's in here and I know it's in here, it kind of makes more sense to be like, all right, I can definitely taste it. If I was doing this blind, I would just say it has a generic dankness like I do for so many reviews, but it does have a little bit of that cannabis kind of feel. Now, this is just under 4 months old, so maybe that has fallen off since, Curtis originally had it, but it's still there. It's just not as noticeable as the nose was indicating as I first cracked that can. This finishes with a beautiful high tart, low sour kind of feel on the finish. Mild acidity here, so it's not like inducing heartburn as we're speaking. Beautiful dryness too. This is semi to full-on dry. I'd say more like a firmly dry kind of finish, but not bone dry. No bitterness to speak of, but you kind of don't expect that with a beer like this. So let me go back another sip, see what I'm going to give this as a rating. 6%, you can't tell. Now that taste, I almost got a little vanilla, so like almost a little pineapple creamsicle. Very small skosh of it. I do like the level of tartness and dryness in comparison to the sweetness, because the sweetness isn't all that big to begin with, but that dryness and that nice highly tart, lower sour kind of feeling really helps out in this beer. I think this is a nice beer. It's a very nice beer. I'm thoroughly enjoying this one. They released this one, I think it was back in June. So for the summer, this would have been crushable. Again, I think I want a little bit more of the terpenes based on the nose originally and what I know about this beer, but at the same time, this is just a nice pineapple sour ale with some kind of accentuation from the terpenes. So yeah, this is really nice. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's not amazing or anything, but I can get down with it. 6%, like I said, you really can't tell. So really nice beer. I'm going to pour in the rest and take one more sip just to see if maybe all the terpene goodness was at the bottom. I don't know. Is that the case? If that was the case, that'd be crazy. Nope. Still there. Just slight pineapple creamsicle, salinity, minerality, dankness on the finish, nice balance, good beer. I can't give this a high score, but I'm gonna give it a pretty good score. So Pineapple Express, the first beer I've ever had from Seventh Son, we'll go high 4 out of 5, we'll go 4.05. Fun beer, but I do think that if I would have had this maybe a little bit fresher, maybe the dank qualities, the terpenes, come to the forefront a little bit more. I don't know. I do like the artwork. It's pretty sick, honestly, in a good way. I love that. They also have a spiel on the side here. It says, just in relation to the terpenes being here, it says, jazz cabbage, devil's lettuce, wacky tobacco, sticky icky. It's 420 somewhere, buddy. Spark a cold one. I've heard the spark a cold one on a couple other beers that have this, that have the terpenes in them. Price point availability. I don't remember what Curtis said he paid for it. He probably had the sticker on here and I ripped it off. However, I did check their website. This was $13.99 6-pack at their website. If it makes distro, maybe it's 15 or 16. That's fine for something like this. 6% pineapple puree, cannabis terpenes, and you're talking like under $2.50 a can. Yeah, all day, every day. It's a fun little exercise. It'd be really cool if they did this again and they switched up the fruit they used and maybe even switched up the cannabis terpenes they used. Like make it a series of beers and just change it up, and maybe you happen upon a fantastic sour that you have to brew all the time. Maybe some people think that this is that beer, but for me, I give it a 4.05 out of 5. It's pretty good. Availability, I have no idea with Seventh Son, so Curtis, anybody in Ohio, you can chime in and let the folks know. I'd imagine Columbus area, probably Ohio as a whole. Like I said, I've heard of Seventh Son, never had a beer until now. Curtis has hooked it up with many Ohio breweries that I've never had before, so it's pretty cool to experience a new one. So if you've had this one before or any other beer with cannabis terpenes in it, throw it into the comment section and let me know what you thought about this one or any terpene-based beer. I think these are a lot of fun. I don't think they're going to go away, and I'm here for it. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I got a chance to try another one. Maybe some local breweries will do the same, and I'll get to try it more. So once again, huge thanks to Curtis for this beer. Thanks everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. To the next one. Cheers.